talk about this digital ID. Digital ID. This is something that's been in the works for a very long time, guys. I've been watching this. They've been wanting to do this for decades. They've been talking about this, the WEF, the UN, various, governments. They've been discussing implementing something like this, and they've kept it kind of low key, but recently the rollout has been very rapid. Over 100 countries onboarding on this thing in a relatively short period of time. They've been talking about it in the UK, talking about if you don't have the ID, you're not going to be able to work. And there's been some pushback, and rightfully so. And make no mistake, they're going to be wanting to push it here in the United States as well. I don't see our current administration doing anything to stop it. I don't see any of the politicians on either side of the aisle doing anything to stop this from happening. Digital ID, we're basically talking about electronic verification with biometric data tied to your bank account, your medical records, your purchase history, your GPS data, location data, and on and on and on, probably your social media as well. All of this information in one place. Of course, the government will have it. A private corporation may be in charge of curating that information as well, so that's something to consider. They're going to sell it to you with convenience. They're going to say, hey, look, you don't have to pull out your wallet. You don't have to pull out your passport. You're going to be able to go across countries, no problem, across borders, certain borders. And you're going to, payment's going to be a breeze. They're going to say that that fraud is going to be eliminated. They're going to say that this is going to be something that we're going to use to crack down on illegal immigration. They're going to use that for certain subgroups of people. They're going to target different people with different benefits that this thing is going to have, in an effort to roll it out. And it's going to take longer in certain countries than others because some people are not going to accept it. I think we should push back pretty hard on this. And I'll tell you why. There's some pretty bad implications. There's some conveniences, don't get me wrong. But there are some implications, and I think they outweigh the conveniences. The biggest implication is obviously total control of your information and your payments, the monetary system in general, on an individual level by governments and even a private corporation that, like I said, may have access to all this data. Even going down as far as like having like social credit score systems, things like that, like they have in China. Now, I know some people will say, well, I don't think they have, it's not like that big of a deal in China. Well, it may not be for people who haven't gotten to the point where their credit score is so low that it's actually become a problem. And in certain provinces, they have, they have a little bit of a different attitude towards this. But my understanding is that it does exist, and going forward, it's probably going to be more and more implemented across the board in places like that. And it can be implemented across the board around the world once they get this thing in place, because they're going to have all this information on you, everything you do, everywhere you've been, everything you've purchased. Okay, so totalitarian governments are never going to tell you that they're coming out to control you. What they're going to do is they're going to sell you convenience and safety, and that's what they're going to do with this digital ID. They're also going to say, of course, that it's going to prevent fraud, that, people are not going to be able to hack this. This is biometrically verified. You're not going to be able to hack it. Here's the problem with that, in my opinion. It may prevent low-level fraud on a certain level. However, if fraud exists in this system, it's going to be very much more extreme, so much more devastating. Think about it. They get into this system, they hack into this system somehow, and they actually get your digital ID information. Now they've got your biometrics. They've got the key to the kingdom, man. They've got the key to everything. All your bank accounts, all your information, your social media. They can steal your identity entirely, and there's no way around it. And then once payment systems are basically predicated on the fact that you need to have this ID, if the fraud does happen and your ID is stolen, you're not going to be able to even buy a cup of coffee. Okay, so that's one of the big implications right there. And another implication is that a failure of this system is very similar to what I just said. In other words, if you need to have this ID to pay for that cup of coffee, and the system somehow fails in some way, shape, or form, and you're not able to verify who you are because the system's down or because your records have been lost and so your biometric data no longer works, you're still not going to be able to buy that cup of coffee. You're going to go hungry. It's not good. It's dangerous. So we could be looking at some kind of dystopian future, maybe a cyberpunk type of thing in the future, right? Based on that. So I always like to talk about solutions, potential solutions, things like that, things we can do. I don't have a whole lot for this one, to be honest with you. All I can say is we got to push back on this. At least here in the United States, we got to push back, do whatever we can to not have this digital ID be implemented and be a total system, total control system on our payments and all this. Obviously, we want to keep cash as long as possible. You could use gold and silver, barter, things like that. And that's the other thing, the only other solution that I would have right now. Obviously, we need to build relationships in our community and with people doing business to where we can, would be able to get some food, for example, if that system goes down and you're not able to buy that cup of coffee, or you're not able to buy that sandwich, something to eat that day, you're going hungry. Having relationships with your neighbors and people, because the human aspect around this technocracy that's coming is going to be one of the most important survival mechanisms that we have. But guys, this is what I wanted to say. Basically, I want to talk about these digital IDs. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Do you think this is coming soon? Do you think that it's inevitable? Do you think that it's something we can avoid? And if you have any solutions for if this does get implemented, I'd love to hear those as well. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and call it a day, and I'll catch you on the next one. I'm out.